Welcome to New Haven. My name's Stephen Lash. I'm a chairman of Christie's, the auction house, an alumnus of Yale, a Vincent Scully disciple. So the short message is I come to art through the back door of architecture. I'm also a disciple of Jeannie Rice, who has been a creative force behind Civitas for a long time. And we're here today to discuss the implications of the COVID virus for the design world. So, Deborah, can we lead off with you?
I'd be delighted, and nice to see you, and welcome back to New Haven, where we are at Next Haven, an arts center here, artist residency program. So it's the appropriate tying together of art and architecture.
What do you see happening now in your world of design, both in the residential area and the commercial area, and what changes do you anticipate?
Why don't you start?
I thought we would start with the easy domain, and that would be residential, and then maybe move to why we're here at Next Haven, which would be to talk about public space and community engagement.
Right.
But to kick it off, we do see changes coming to residential design. There are obvious ones to mention, like things people are doing with their apartments. Apartments are under greater need for a whole range of activities. Rooms now do double or triple purpose. And one of the interesting things we anticipate this leading to, paradoxically, is not in radical changes to apartment design, but maybe the way in which apartment buildings or places people share, like lobbies, hallways, vestibules, and sidewalks, becoming new grounds for design intervention.
Do you anticipate smaller private spaces and perhaps communal spaces in apartment buildings?
I think we do.
Yes.
Yeah, it would be both a sensible thing to do and a kind of much needed corrective for cities like New York, where we actually spend a lot of time together. And those spaces deserve and need design. And apartment building, to reduce it to the question of how might one change an apartment building, lobbies, reception spaces where we get our mail all need to be rethought, perhaps expanded, made a little bit better.
What do you do with elevators, for example?
Encourage people to take the stairs, which would be a health benefit if one can look for an upside in this public health crisis. I think as we get towards cleaning and masks, we will work our way back, and it's not just elevators, but elevator lobbies and how we interact with each other. But I think your question leads to an interesting point about the short-term design, because we're not tearing down every building in New York and starting over. And much of this people are doing intuitively and very intelligently, which is switching your dining table from a workspace for 3 kids to a place where you can have a family dinner. You might do things as simple as flowers and candlesticks just to change it. But people don't need architects to do that. They need common sense and a will to sort of make better out of a bad situation. I think going forward in design of residential spaces, we will be thinking how rooms can be multi-used without changing their inherent character.
Use of common facilities can now be parceled out over time. Mm-hmm. So maybe one's workday, or how we each think about our workday, might shift so that some of us go to work at 7 and some of us go to work at 9 and others return in a staggered fashion, so that use of these things we share can be parceled out over time.
And I can see schools adapting in the same way. I have a friend who's a very successful divorce lawyer, and he says he's doing record business. Now, what I'm dying to ask you is, do you foresee the need for an additional master bedroom in every apartment?
Bedrooms are certainly doing multiple duty now. My children use them like offices.
That's right.
So maybe.
And I would assume that the impact on conversions from commercial space to residential space is going to be even accelerated.
I think there's a question implied there that no one knows the answer to, and that is what to do with so many commercial spaces. Pressures on the workplace are new, but we don't all have to be there at the same time anymore. And offices are getting very facile with who works how and when, and do you get an office or are you hot desking? Do you use the focus room instead of a communal space? And how do we all share these facilities? And that's leading to less need for office space and leading to the question, what do we do with all of this commercial space? And conversions would be a very good thing.
But I think it's important to also remember that COVID won't be with us forever. We will see recurring, the health specialists have told us, we will see recurring outbreaks of pandemics, but we will edge back into life as we remember it, and we will bring with us what we've learned, which is that not everybody has to be in the office at the same time, not everybody has to commute at the same time. So we're going to come out of this, I think, with a hybrid that benefits from what we learned, but maintains the upside of working together creatively around a table, for instance. You don't want that to go away completely.
And one thing that interests me tremendously is, what about the developers? Now, what are their thoughts and ideas?
You may have to ask them, but having a compelling story to tell about how you've adapted and how a new kind of flexibility about both residential spaces and shared spaces, common spaces, amenities is going to be part of the scene now.
Anything going on in the development world that is COVID related? That
feels a little early to say.
Yes, I think it is a little early to say. People are keeping their fingers crossed, are forward looking about what the hybrid future is going to look like and how we transition back to what everybody is calling the new normal. What will that look like going forward? So still everybody's taking in information and data and figuring out what the future is going to look like.
What role has the AIA played in all of this? Have they taken positions?
I would say the AIA will encourage research by architects and other sort of fellow studiers of cities, of sociology, epidemiologists, and probably issue recommendations. But it feels, for most of us in the design biz, it feels early to make too many declarations, and maybe more urgent to say some of those things that were happening before COVID remain really important.
Yeah.
New York City tells us the spaces we share, common space, public space, streets, sidewalks, what happens on the ground floors of buildings today. These are things we'll all look at, and I think solutions will come from unexpected places and probably from young, excited design firms first.
You know, sorry, Stephen, to interrupt you. I wanted to add to that because I think the discussion of public space, everybody has mostly been, yikes, we need to stay apart from each other, and is the subway safe, and can I sit on the grass in the park far enough away from the next family? We really have been, during COVID, in cities like New York, celebrating and using our public space to an extent I have never seen before. I live up by Gracie Mansion, and the number of sort of freelance physical fitness trainers along the promenade that are outside with their weights and their ropes, and their clients come on the hour and they're out there in their spandex outfits. And last weekend there was a small ballet troupe practicing on the promenade. It was spectacular. I mean, it made you, it was one of those I love New York moments. We are outside using our outdoor spaces, turning parking spaces into restaurants. We New Yorkers are being, I think, very, very smart about how we use our public realm. And I hope we bring these lessons forward to when the health crisis is over and we realize that we can use our public spaces more creatively and more expansively.
What about outside the United States? In my work, I've found we live in a very international environment. Are there examples of people who have dealt effectively or particularly ineffectively with the virus that you would like to point to?
I will not point to people, but I will point to cities where I think the same celebration of public space is taking place. And from those early in the COVID crisis, those moving videos of people in Rome standing on their balconies and singing, not unlike New Yorkers leaning out their windows and banging pots and pans to say, even when we're locked inside, we the people still own the streets. Those are our spaces. And if we can't do it with our bodies, we're going to do it with sound.
That's inspiring.
It was inspiring. And that, I think, prefaced how we got back out into the streets and into the parks. And I think we have truly seen this globally. In every city, if anything, it says to people building or expanding or creating new cities, whether that's in China or South America or parts of North America, is don't forget the importance of public space. Think about where people are going to gather, whether they're gathering 6 feet apart or in the future, hopefully more closely together. Where do we do that? What do our parks look like? How do we share our amenities? How wide are our sidewalks? How gracious are our building entrances? Sure. Because that's what the virus has shown us around the entire world, how much we need those spaces.
Yeah. I think that's on a very upbeat note on which we might conclude. I had a final question, which is about what the future holds. When we have a meeting at the office, the last question is, what are the next steps?
I'll introduce an answer, and I bet Deborah can wrap it up. I think it's now incumbent on architects to focus on shared space and shared experience. That connects a little bit to Next Haven, the building we're in now. This is an effort by 2 young artists to connect their community, this community of Dixwell, New Haven, to the arts, to their activities in a very meaningful way, and it has become a kind of institutionally sponsored public space. We're in a space that is public during the day-to-day operations of this building, where kids who live in this neighborhood might rub up against real artists in the residency program and become aware of the apprenticeship program that happens here. This is one example of how architecture and design can house that kind of shared experience or common space that we need so much more of.
Very, very positive. I urge all our Civitas friends now to detour to New Haven and come see this incredible space and a very novel setting and novel idea. Congratulations.
Thank you, Stephen. And I would just like to add, as a New Yorker, a thanks to Civitas for all you do for our beloved city, particularly in its tough times.
Hear, hear.
Hear, hear.